Okay, so we're up to new Siman Mem. Siman Mem, Din Eich Linheig B'Kedushas HaTefillin. So the Siman deals with all the halachas of Kedusha of Tefillin, important and very relevant halachas. Says the Sif Aleph, Osa Litlois Tefillin, you're not allowed to hang Tefillin, Bein Bebatim, Bein Beretzuos. In other words, imagine you take the Tefillin out of the bag, and you just take them and to hang them, suspend them on a peg, either from the batim or from the other way around with the retzuas. That's a bizoyin for tefillin. But you are allowed to hang them bekisson when they're still in the bag. Yes, imagine you've got a peg and you've got your tefillin bag and you want to put them on a peg. That would be okay, but when they're loose, when you take the tefillin out, that you shouldn't do. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sifkat and Aleph. Also litlois al hayoset on a peg, but that's a bizoyin for the tefillin. Bein bebatim, shabatim tluus lemata, whether you're sort of hanging them from the batim, which is suspended downwards, or bein sharatzuas tluus lemata, or whether you hang them from the retzuas. Mikol makom bakroi ba'alma, but stam she'oichiz atfillin biyodai, when you're holding on to the tefillin, varatzuas tluus lemata, and then you're holding them, and the tefillin, the retzuas are suspended down. Ein lahak, with that we're not worried about. It's just taking the tefillin, put them on a peg. That's a derech b'zayin. Avenemat tefillin tluyin also b'chol gavni. If you're holding them, you by the retzuas and the tefillin are hanging down, even that is to be avoided. That's also. Ve'ein bichlal zeh mashe tefillin shel rosh tolu ba'avir machazikin biyad b'retzuas masim narish. We're not worried when you're actually putting them on. You're taking the retzuas and holding them about to put them on. That's not included in this. Kizeu tzorech hanachos, and that's just the way you put them on. That's okay. V'yesh manichin hashel rosh al hadaf v'chodem b'shar shelovshin, and to put them on the table when you're putting them down, you take out the tefillin shel yad or whatever, and then you've got the shel rosh on the table. That's not a problem. Okay, bekisson, but to hang the tefillin in their bag, that is okay. However, the Sefer Torah also litloisa b'chol gavni. But to hang a Sefer Torah on a peg, that would not be allowed. Even if it's in an aron and the aron is being suspended in some way, that's not allowed. Klal lamed aleph shekosav ta'afilu kasharon hakodesh mechuber b'yisedes lekoisel also. Very interesting. I don't know if you've seen this, but if you've got, imagine like a cupboard aron hakodesh. So the aron hakodesh that we were familiar with is where it goes down to the ground. But imagine you've got like a cupboard and it's just sort of suspended in midair. Says the Chai Odom, kasharon hakodesh mechuber b'yisedes lekoisel also kol she'ein tachtav oimed dovema. If there's nothing underneath it, and it's just sort of suspended in midair, then he says it's a problem. Now, interestingly, if you look at footnote number 3, he says, "Haloshin kol she'ein tachtav oimid dovema ein nimtzes b'chayodom." That line, those few words, that nothing is underneath it, that you don't find in the Chai Odom. V'adarab, on the contrary, b'nishmas odom kosov she'im kovad daf u'meniach olav, and you got to flip to the back. U'meniach olav es aron hakodesh nechshav aron k'munach v'le katolui v'yesh lo'odin kavonas ha'mishmur l'chalek olav b'zeh, etc., etc. In other words, if you've got, imagine Aron HaKodesh, which is against the wall, and that seems to be that it's a problem. But if you've got a daf which is underneath it, like a ledge or a shelf which is holding up that cupboard, then, is that how it is upstairs?
Yeah.
Then, yeah, okay, so then l'chera that would be okay. All right, let's carry on the Mishnah Berurah. Usfarim, Kagoyin Sifrei Talmud v'Chadoim Adoim Tefillin, and therefore if you've got Sfarim in a bag and they're on a peg, that would be okay. If you've got some sort of Sfarim or Sidurim which are suspended and they've got luchos, which means like balls, even the hard covers of the Sfarim, also litlos and bomb, you can't hang them. Sha'luchas ein doimus lakis, because the luchos, the boards, like the hard covers, are not like a bag. Lefishem mechubaris l'siddur, that's part of the siddur. V'hari hein kasiduri atzma, it's like the siddur itself. Now, turning over the page, we're up to page Samach Tes. The next few lines, just the next 4 lines of Mishnah Berurah, there's a lot of notes and discussion about that. Let's see how much we can do. Mutter lichtov b'psukim b'nayor. So if you can't hang things, what about a picture? What about a picture which has psukim on? Is that a problem? So he says the Mishnah Berurah, mutter lichtov psukim b'nayor v'litloisem b'pesach beis hakneses. We all see that. You have pictures, dalif ne'miata oimeid, or whatever it may be. that would be okay. Nagin ha'ilam lis anois kashanefet tefillin. Okay, important halacha. Kedusha of tefillin. What happens if you drop your tefillin? So says the Mishnah Berurah, Nagin ha'ilam, the minhag ha'ilam is lis anois, to fast kashanefet tefillin, when your tefillin fall, miyado, from your hand, al haaretz, below nartikon, when they're not in the bag. For hu adin kashanefet sefer Torah, and so too if a sefer Torah falls, afilu benartikon, even if the Sefer Torah is in its case, if the Sefer Torah falls, then you have to fast. You can be paid and you can give some money to Tzedaka. So let's take a look at some very interesting horrors. So the first one is number 8. Yeah, so the Mishnah Berurah says that if the minhag ha'ilam is to fast if the tefillin falls. Says the footnote number 8, what happens? You come into shul in the morning, you haven't eaten yet, and your tefillin fall. So when do you fast? Do you fast that day, or do you wait till tomorrow? So he says, you fast that day, the day that, today is Wednesday, the day that your tefillin fell, you haven't eaten yet, you can fast that day. Because that's like a siman min hashamayim. Just like with a chalom, you should fast straight away, you shouldn't hang around. Well, so too with this, if it happened that day, you haven't eaten yet, so fast that day. Me'idach, on the other hand, the Chaim says, when you have a fast, you should be makabel the tanis. So therefore, if you drop today on Wednesday, you makabel it in mincha, and then tomorrow you fast on the Thursday. So that's one machlikas. Now, what if a person's old or not well? Everyone's got to fast. So he says, vim huzokein uchalosh. If a person is older or is weak, kosva kafachaim, and the tshuvas of Chaim Sha'al, sheyochel liftos es hatanis b'tzedaka. You can give money instead to tzedaka, instead of fasting. V'chein heira hagoner b'yashuv, le'lomdei Torah, for those who learn Torah, shehatanis hifriya le'limudam, that it's very hard to learn if you're fasting, sheyiftu b'tzedaka, for yeshiva bach or whatever, anyone who's learning, and it will disturb his learning, then he can be paid if your tefillin full, you can be paid for tzedaka. And younger children who fasting, b'mitzvah boys, they're 13, 14, 15 years old, it's hard for them to fast. They should learn for another couple of hours or whatever. Okay, now the next note, note number 9, if the tefillin fall, what if the tefillin apostle? Did you have to fast if tefillin apostle? Well, if you're a sofer and you've got tefillin psulos, do you have to fall for that? So kosav eis Chaim shalom. And again, if you can be paid with tzedaka, then then one should try and do that. Now, what about if a person is wearing tefillin and a person trips? So not that the tefillin fall on the floor, but you wearing tefillin fall on the floor. Has that got the same din as tefillin falling on the floor? So in footnote number 10 he says, but the tefillin stay on him. Just like if a person falls whilst he's holding a Sefer Torah, the nisha Sefer Torah omad b'yodei, and he's lying on the floor but he's still holding on to the omad of the Sefer Torah. You don't need to fast. If a person trips and he's still wearing tefillin and they're on him, you do not need to fast. Okay. And then we said, if the tefillin fall and they're below nartikin, they're not in the bag. So number 11, he says, "V'tam hadava kosav b'shavet shuvas in the shalit and shuvas mari bruna shemisha nofluloi hatfillin simenu min hashamayim shetzorich lachsa b'tshuva." Someone who drops his tefillin is a siman min hashamayim, he should do tshuva. U'midvar of lom b'shutz netzitz Eliezer she'ein tanizu noheges el misha nofla tefillin miyodov. Is dafka if the tefillin fall out of your hand. If I'm putting on my tefillin and the guy next to me drops his tefillin, so then that I don't have to fast because his tefillin fell on the floor. Masha'enken, a Sefer Torah, someone who sees a Sefer Torah falling, anyone who sees it should fast. And the reason is because if I drop my tefillin, it's a siman for me that I must have done something. Masha'en came b'moisi sefer Torah l'kar ben b'tzibur shekiven sheshliach tzibur hu nechshuv hadova ketakolos l'chol tzibur. Masha'en if the shliach tzibur drops it, then it's for the whole tzibur. Okay, good. Now, one final point. What about who exactly has got to fast if a sefer Torah falls? You've got to be in the room. You've got to see it. So if you look at the next column, number 12, the next line in, the legabe al miach chol hachiyuv lisanis b'shenof sefer Torah beis hakneses, kosav b'shal shuvas Chaim Sha'al, sherak mi shenof mi yodei tzorach lisanis. Interestingly, the Chaim Sha'al says only the guy who's holding the sefer Torah and drops it has to fast. V'lo elu sheroz, it's not those who see it. Omnom. Noch and sherav hamokum yigzar lefi haroseinof. But the Rav of the shul should paskin according to what is appropriate for him. However, anyone who sees the Sefer Torah falling should fast, and that seems to be the common minhag in that we were aware of. Okay. And if one of the Sefer Torah it falls, if you're holding the Sefer Torah and a bit is still in your hand, then it's more makel, it's more room to be lenient on that. Okay, let's say that. Let's press on. Let's do base. We can do this. What? And give tzedaka. Really? Yeah. So he says lefi ro'aseinov is often it's up to the Rav to pass what's appropriate for him. Oh really? So that's these are all sniffing to be matzah. It's a scary thing when it falls. Yeah. Okay, let's do base. A quick halacha. Bias sheyesh by tefillin. If there is tefillin in a room, bias over here means a room, not a house. So if there is tefillin in a room, also l'shamish by mitasa, it's also to have relations with one's wife. Unless one takes the tefillin out, kli b'toich kli, unless he recovers them in a kli within a kli. Now that second kli can't be miyuchad for the thing. For example, a talis bag, which is miyuchad for the kli, that doesn't serve as a second kli. Because if it's miyuchad for that thing, then even 100 of them is not a barrier. Says the Ramah, and if both of them are not miyuchad, or the inner one isn't miyuchad, and the outer one is, then that would be okay. Alright, says the Mutter, that would be okay. Says the Mishnah Berurah Tefillin. V'huadin chumashim or sidurei tefillis, lav dafka only tefillin. Any form of sidurim or chumashim or shas forim, bein b'ksiva or b'tfus. Whether they're actually written or b'tfus, that means a printed thing. Hakol yesh b'im kedusha. All of those items, those svarim have kedusha, but even kli b'toich kli, and therefore you need a kli b'toich kli. V'afilu im hein ksav meshita, even if it's not in ksav. Which is not the writing for Sefer Torah Mezuzah, Hurak Ksav Ashuri, which has got to be Ksav Ashuri, even if it's a different type of writing. Or Krichas HaSefer Eina Nechsheves Lekisui. The Kricha, which means the binding, the book itself, the hard cover of a book, that's not a Kisui, Eina Nechsheves Lekisui. Tehimi Guf HaSefer, that's part of the Sefer. Or Bo'inon Oid Shnei Kisui. You need two Kisuyin aside from the actual hard cover of the Sefer. I'm there b'siman reisha einayv b'taz shom sivkot ches shekosov. Kol ha-mekel b'kedusha sfarim ha-nitfosim. Anyone who is mekel with kedusha sfarim ha-nitfosim, with printed sfarim, osid litin esadin. He will have to give the din on this to tfus have kamei ksiva, because a printed sefer is like a proper written sefer. If there's nothing to cover it with, then the Chavas Yoah is makil with a printed sefer. It doesn't have the same kedusha as a regular, properly written sefer. Mitosai, lav dafka tashmish hamita, but also to relieve oneself, and that's relevant. If people have this, they have an older parent or a grandparent who moves into the front room, and that could be a room with svarim. And they're going to have a commode in that room. They're going to relieve themselves in that room. So you've got to put mechitzas down that for example, if this was the room, you've got Sfarim here, you have to put down a curtain hanging to cover them over. We're going to see now. Either you take the Sfarim to a different room, or you put a mechitza of at least 10 tefachim high. Doesn't have to be kalim. Even two sort of coverings, like wrappings. If you cover it with a talis, a la kiss shel tefillin, even though you cover the tefillin on the top and on the sides and it's not underneath, that's considered a good covering. And those who put the tefillin bag and the talis into another bag, which what many people do, they put it in a larger bag. The larger kiss is considered that which is miyuchad for the talis and the tefillin. Therefore you need another kiss. Unless you mamish wrap the tefillin in the talis, that would be considered a covering. The talis ain't a killian because the talis is not the keli for the tefillin. And so too, if the kiss of the tefillin, the bag of the tefillin bag is mechuba lamala on the large bag, the second side, the underside of the larger kiss, of the larger keli, ain't nikra killian. It's not called the kli. But it will help if you turn it around. This is interesting halacha. If you got a mezuzah, which is on the inside of the room, now most of our mezuzahs are not. Most of our mezuzahs, you close the door, they actually be on the outside, so it's not a problem. But if the mezuzah is on the inside of the door frame, tzorich kli b'toich kli, because you've got you need a kli b'toich kli to cover that. Tahainu sheyechasa oisa b'shnei kisuyin ve'echod mehem yeh al kol panim einam miyuchad lo. You need two kelim, and one of them should not be miyuchad for it. Im ala mezuzah yesh kisu zuchuchis. Now this is very common. If you've got a glass cover for the mezuzah, af sham mezuzah niris metoicha, even though you can see the mezuzah through the glass, afilu hachi nechsheves kisu echad. That's counted as one kli. The dye befrisa suda al mezuzah, and then it's sufficient just to put a little handkerchief over the mezuzah. That will be a second covering. Oh, we're coming to that. Because now you can't see the mezuzah which is inside the glass thing. But to put another glass on top of it, that won't help. Even though you've got two kelim, because you can see the mezuzah inside it. Nearly. The bein mezuzah ishas farim im also metchila base kelim. If you initially do two kelim, sheychoshev echad lekli b'toich kli kagain shekarcha mezuzah benayo. You take the mezuzah and you wrap it in some sort of paper, cling film even, yeah. Now the difference is the cling film is visible, it's see-through. So if you've got the cling film in a glass, then you've got a bit of a problem because it's the shtei batim which we just spoke about. But if it's wrapped in a different material, then l'chorah will be okay. And all the other dinim related to this, we'll get to in Reish Mem. Last finishing off, ches she'ein hasheni. This is going on the Ramah. The Ramah says, "V'im shneim einam miyuchadim, ayashapnimi einam miyuchad." Then he said it's muta. Sorry, it's going on the Mechaber. V'hu she'ein hasheni miyuchad lohem. Says the Mishnah Berurah, lav dafka. V'hu adinim apnimi einam miyuchad. Even if the pnimi is not miyuchad, v'hachitzon miyuchad. Like the Ramah says. Kli b'toich kli is only a problem if they're both miyuchad. They're both designated for it. Then if one is not miyuchad, then it's mitzaref with the one which is miyuchad, and that's considered kiss b'toich kiss. The Ramah is not arguing, he's coming to explain the mechaber, that you shouldn't get confused with the lashon of the mechaber. But one kli which is not miyuchad, loy mahani v'asa. It's got to be kli b'toich kli. Say that.